Welcome to Raising Me, where we tackle the joys and the challenges of raising kids today. I'm Adrienne Stein, a mom of three and a longtime journalist. A quick shout out to our sponsor, Maine Health, who helps us bring all these great guests to you. Today, we are diving into a topic that really resonates with so many families, but often hasn't gotten a lot of attention until somewhat recently. We're talking about Eldest Daughter Syndrome. If you're a parent of multiple kids, or maybe if you're the oldest daughter yourself, you might recognize this sort of unique pressures or expectations and responsibilities that often come with being the oldest. Really hits home for me as an eldest daughter, but then also raising an eldest daughter. To help unpack this phenomenon, we are joined by Misty Richardson. She is a licensed clinical social worker and the clinical supervisor for Pediatric Inpatient Services with Northern Lights Acadia Hospital. She has years of experience working with families and children, and together, we're going to explore what it really means to be the eldest daughter, how these dynamics can shape identity, mental health as well, and perhaps most importantly, how we can foster healthier family relationships. So whether you're just curious about this topic or maybe looking for some practical advice to lighten the load for your eldest daughter, this episode really is for you. Misty, I'm really excited to talk to you about this today for a number of reasons. For one, eldest daughter here, and my oldest child is my daughter. So coming to this with really some personal experience, but also just, it is so fascinating. What is eldest daughter syndrome? I mean, this is not a medical term, right?
Correct. This is not a medical term or even a psychiatric term. This is more of an anecdotal experience that eldest daughters tend to experience as the oldest child in the family and the oldest female child in the family. This is very exciting stuff, and thank you so much for having me on today. I, too, am an oldest daughter, so I can understand a lot of the personality traits that people are recognizing in women who are eldest daughters.
You know what? It's interesting because a colleague of mine sent me an article and said, oh, this could be a really interesting topic. And then it was about eldest daughter syndrome, had never heard of it before, has really come to light sort of with this TikTok from an influencer. But here are some of the things that were listed in this article that I was sent. And I was like, okay, well, I feel seen. You have an intense feeling of responsibility. You are an overachiever, type A, and very driven. You worry a lot and probably have anxiety. You struggle with people-pleasing behaviors. You have a hard time placing and upholding boundaries. You resent your siblings and family. You struggle with feelings of guilt. You have a difficult time in some adult relationships. I mean, not checking all the boxes there, but I think
Correct,
a lot
but
of
I still feel a little attacked.
I feel a little attacked, right? But I think there are a lot in that list that a lot of eldest daughters can relate to. Why do you think that is?
Absolutely. Because eldest daughters, as being the oldest sibling in the family unit, are often given more responsibility over their siblings, usually at young ages when their parents are having more children. So it's not surprising that they feel more responsible or that they feel driven and motivated to do well, to impress their parents, to succeed in the expectations that their parents put on them. It makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Just looking at the whole family dynamic, this is not just oldest child is a daughter. This is, even if this daughter has an older brother, she's still sort of carrying this weight.
Yes, absolutely. And research has shown, and the article that just came out in earlier this year, a longitudinal study of about 250 mother-child dyads. They studied them over the course of 15 years. This was a study published by Jennifer Han Holbrook in Psychoendocrinology. Found that daughters do have these kind of characteristics where mature faster and actually go through adrenal puberty earlier than other females in different ranks of birth order in their sibling family. They did not find the same for male children, even if they were the eldest son. They do not enter puberty quicker like women do.
Interesting. What are some of the specifics? I mean, we went through some of the can you relate to these items kind of list, but what are some of the signs that parents should look out for in their oldest daughter?
Eldest daughters tend to feel a greater sense of responsibility for their siblings and for the household functioning, whether it be the household tasks, whether it's being a role model for the younger siblings, or even babysitting the younger siblings. With the whole nature nurture debate, this study really looked at the evolutionary perspective of, when the oldest daughter is helping the mother and the other parent with household tasks and bringing up the children, that allows the resources to spread more evenly amongst family members, which is definitely a good adaptive strategy for families.
Recognizing signs, though, like of anxiety or just, when your child puts a lot of pressure on themselves, even beyond what the pressure might be that, of your expectations, perhaps.
Absolutely. You might see an increase in anxiety or even depression. Some studies have shown that even obesity can be related to having this sense of over responsibility earlier in life. You might also want to look for your child being a perfectionist or having high expectations for themselves. They might be very determined and hardworking. They might be a people pleaser and just want everybody around them to be happy with who they are and how they're performing, whether it be in school, whether it be in their family role or in their circle of friend group.
What could some potential long-term consequences of this be?
Yeah, so, children aren't equipped for adult responsibilities. So if they feel pressured, either biologically or by their families to perform adult responsibilities, they might have lower self-esteem and lower self-confidence because their expectations for themselves are much higher than what they're able to developmentally perform. Sometimes they feel like failures or have an increase in anxiety or, some other mental health symptoms as a result.
This isn't necessarily universal, right? This is not
Correct.
necessarily every eldest daughter in every family, but, why do you think it might be, might show up in some families for some oldest or eldest daughters and not others?
That's a very good question. And I think it lies in the nature versus nurture. So you have the biological aspect. So your personality just as a person. You have nature, which is maybe some of the pressures put on the eldest daughter to, do more for the family. There's cultural and social factors. There's situational factors. There's a whole bunch of players at stake here.
Yeah, playing a role in it. And, for
Yeah.
parents, like, because again, my oldest child is my daughter, and
Mhm.
there are some of these things that you're describing. I do, I can identify it, right?
Mhm.
So for parents who recognize these signs, what are some things that we can do to help and support our eldest daughters?
Absolutely. And I don't think there's any right or wrong answer to this. I mean, we're all parents, we're all learning. There's no instruction book. We're going to
No.
make mistakes. We're going to do great things for our children. But what I would say is, have some awareness of what you're putting onto your children. Is your expectations for them developmentally appropriate for their age and for their level of functioning? Are their responsibilities attainable for the child? You might have a 5-year-old that could help you with the laundry, but maybe you have a 10-year-old with autism who doesn't have that skill yet, and that's okay. Every child is different. But I would just have an awareness of of what we're expecting our children to do, and just knowing whether they are capable at that time in their development of succeeding.
What could a conversation look like with your eldest daughter, who you sort of are recognizing these signs and symptoms, and what does that conversation look like?
In talking about an eldest daughter about these things, perhaps giving her an awareness of why she might have these traits, and maybe having a conversation about what can we do as a family to better support you, so that maybe they're not feeling as anxious, or not feeling as like they have to be a rule follower, like they have to do things perfectly to make the adults happy. And just having a collaborative conversation about what she would want, and also a conversation about what the parent is wanting for their daughter as well.
I also think part of it would be better distributing responsibilities of the household, right, to the other
Absolutely.
siblings, which is not always easy for anybody, but what could be some guidance there to make sure that we are aware, and then making sure that the distribution of everybody pitching in is more equal?
Absolutely. So, our traditional culture, social, and gender roles often put women at as having most of the responsibility for the child rearing, the babysitting, the household tasks. I would challenge that. I would ask that the family re-examine the distribution of what everybody's role is in the family. Just because you're the youngest child or you're the male child doesn't mean that you can't be just as helpful to your family.
I wonder too, if there are ways that we could even prevent this. Like, say somebody's listening and has a little, a little, it's their first child who's a daughter. And before you get to the point where you are noticing, well, yeah, the people pleasing, the anxiety,
Mhm,
just, the type A
mhm,
personality, really creeping up, which a lot of those things, look, that's a natural part of life. And,
mhm.
as a somewhat type A personality, like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But
Yeah,
what
exactly.
are
A lot of
some
these traits are actually strengths for women. Being
right.
successful in their lives, being leaders, being determined, being hard workers, knowing their own path, having high expectations for themselves, but to a point so that it's not so stressful that you're feeling stressed and anxious and, feeling like a failure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it's a balancing act. So,
Absolutely.
are there things that, parents could keep in mind to try to prevent eldest daughter syndrome? Again, not a medical term, but certainly something that
Mhm.
has become quite mainstream, prevent that from happening.
Yeah, I think the first step is having awareness, and knowing that this could be an experience for their daughter if they're not careful about developmentally appropriate expectations and responsibilities. I would definitely recommend, like I said, distribution of the household responsibilities be more equal amongst the entire family unit, and not placed just solely on the mother or the eldest daughter.
What about, like, a big part of this is perfectionist
Mhm.
tendencies, right? Which can be a problem for in many aspects. So what if we do start to notice these perfectionist tendencies in our child?
Absolutely. I would say when your eldest daughter is making a mistake, just normalizing that and validating that. Hey, you made a mistake. You're a kid. You're still learning. That's okay. You do not have to be perfect. So reinforcing that professional perfectionism is not expected of them as part of their
But
family role.
and I think too, you alluded to it also, is like, especially with your first child, like, you're kind of winging it, and it is a lot of trial and error. And I just know, raising our daughter compared to our, almost 6-year-old now, we're different parents. Like, we're more laid back. We're not
Mhm,
is like, oh, this has to be done by this time and in this way,
mhm.
because that's the right thing to do. we're much more chill. So,
Hmm.
part of it seems like it's sort of just birth order and the parents you're getting at that time.
Absolutely. And not only that, but the birth order that your parents were in.
Oh,
I was an
interesting.
eldest
How so?
daughter. Yeah. So I was an eldest daughter as well. So I have a lot of these traits that we've been talking about. So it's no surprise that my eldest daughter also has many of the traits
Yeah.
that I have. So there's a lot of nature nurture here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's kind of drill down on that because, you and I are both coming into this conversation as eldest daughters. We have daughters, eldest daughters. So, you know, for us as parents who've experienced this, that maybe it didn't really have words to it coming up, how how can we heal from some of these expectations and prevent them from moving from generation to generation?
Absolutely. I would say the first thing is don't be so hard on yourself. Don't take all the responsibility for everything in your family. Treat yourself with compassion. Remember that you can't do it all and you can't put your happiness and your leisure on hold to take care of everyone and everything. We all need help, mothers and eldest daughters included. Also, set boundaries and enforce them, set roles and enforce them, and break those traditional social, cultural, and gender roles within your family. Distribute the work amongst everyone. Not one person should have all the responsibility for everything.
Yeah, and sometimes so much easier said than done, but even just
Oh,
taking
absolutely.
even like you're talking about just being aware of it
Hmm.
and then taking one small step at a time toward healthier boundaries
Hmm.
and being aware that this is happening potentially in your household with your child and making sure you're providing that supportive place and system for them.
Absolutely.
If there was one key takeaway today on this topic, to whether it is supporting ourselves as recovering eldest daughters for all of us out there, or helping to support our eldest daughters, what would that be?
I would say for us eldest daughters, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't make all the responsibility yours. One person cannot do it all. Moms are often superwomen, but we can't do it all at the same time. And advice I would give for mothers as well is just to remember that kids aren't equipped for all the responsibilities that we sometimes place onto them. We've got to remember what's developmentally appropriate for them. And if we do start to see these signs of perfectionism and, being hard on themselves, just being aware of that and reassuring them that they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be the role model for the rest of their siblings. They don't have to be the leader in the family.
Well, that's great advice for anybody, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, give yourself a little grace, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Misty, thank you so much. I do want to let our listeners know that we will have more resources on our website, which is wgme.com/raising me. Always appreciate it, Misty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, first, eldest daughter parents. Here's the part that I underlined in my notes. Don't be so hard on yourself. You cannot do it all, and you can't put your happiness on hold to take care of everyone and everything else. It seems so basic, but sometimes it is such a good reminder, and certainly appreciate Misty for that. Self-compassion being the key here. And then for our eldest daughters, boy, that self-awareness of expectations for us as parents. That was top of mind for me when I went home after our conversation, and really just acknowledging that pressure and some of the expectations with my daughter. And as Misty suggested, it really is crucial to just acknowledge and validate those pressures that eldest daughters might feel. And then just, again, reassuring them that perfection is not the goal here. We can also better distribute household responsibilities and, of course, ultimately help them see their worth isn't tied to being that family role model or family leader, whatever that might be. So anyway, eldest daughters, I see you, we see you. Thank you so much for listening to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein. Of course, thank you to Maine Health as our sponsor. This episode is edited by Megan Littlefield and produced with Nate Eldridge. Please follow Raising Me wherever you get your podcasts and consider a positive rating and review so others find this message. Wherever you are, I hope you learned something new and get to take a little time for you.